Hey everybody, welcome to Vet Tech Vids, your home for veterinary technical training videos here at VCA. My name is Craig and I'm your host. Today we're going to be joining Mr. Randy Lopez, registered veterinary technician and technical supervisor at VCA Lakeside in Big Bear, California. And Randy's going to break down everything we need to know about a professional veterinary nail trim. So as always, the timeline is in the description, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can keep up with all our latest video publications. Otherwise, let's go ahead and get started. Hey Randy.
Hey Craig.
Thanks for having us in today.
Of course.
So Randy's going to talk us through the basics of a professional veterinary nail trim for dogs and cats. And Randy, I see you've laid out all your common tools here, so maybe we could start with you just giving us an explanation of what you would normally have prepared.
Yeah, no problem. I always like to get my tools ready first before I start with the nails, obviously. The most common style that you'll see is your scissor style nail trimmers. You'll have a larger set for your large dogs and a smaller set for your small dogs. Another common one that you'll see is the guillotine style trimmers as well. And then obviously for your cat nails are going to be your small scissor style trimmers also. So, and then those are your main nail trimmers, and you always want to have your Siptic powder ready just in case you end up quicking a nail, because it does happen from time to time. Nobody's perfect, so you always want to make sure you have that ready. It's good to pour down a little gauze square and then have a little CTA with a little bit of water on the end.
And a CTA is a
cotton tipped applicator.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. Any tricks for noticing or spotting the quick before you make your cuts? I see you have another device there.
Yeah, like pen lights are always handy, not just for cutting nails, but just in general in this field. Pen light will save you a lot, I've found out over the years. But it's really good. You put it on the side of the nail on clear nails and you can see right where that quick ends. So it's always a good tool to visualize that, especially if you're not familiar with where your nail anatomy starts and ends and the quick itself.
Great advice. And then it looks like you might have some finishing products there at the end.
Yeah, after the nail trim, generally they could be pretty sharp after you trim those nails, so it's always good to kind of round them over. You can use an emery board if they're real sensitive with the Dremel. Just kind of round out those sharp points. If they'll tolerate the Dremel, it's always nice to be able to round them over completely. That way they're not scratching on owners when they're jumping up on them or anything like that. So.
That's great advice. Well, since you mentioned the quick, the blood supply, and kind of spotting it, maybe you can take us through a little bit of nail anatomy so we can be comfortable with kind of the basic architecture of the nail.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go take a look.
All right.
All right, Randy, so I see you've got a lateral view of a canine toenail here, so what can you tell us about anatomy?
Yeah, so on here you can see that it's a clear nail, so you're able to visualize this pink part, which is the quick itself. That's a good time to take out your pen light too if it's harder to see for you, and go ahead and shine it on the side of that. You can see as the nail grows long it starts to thin out, and most common it will form a notch. Some nails don't do that. It'll be like a small crumbly type area.
But in general, that blood supply will often line up with that notch?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes though, as the nail grows long, that quick can grow along with that nail. So you always want to be more cautious with those longer nails and start your cut out a bit higher towards the tip.
So I don't just dive in right at that notch and make a cut. I start at the beginning and work my way backwards.
And work your way back.
And are there any clues, like how will you know when you're actually getting close other than the pin light when you're making your cuts?
Yeah, it's common that you'll start to see a small dot form right in the middle of that nail if you're looking at it directly on. In the clear nails you'll see it'll be like this little pink/white dot. In black nails themselves though, it'll be black dot with kind of like a white gray outer area.
Okay.
That's always a good indicator to stop right when you notice that point. And I'm also paying attention to what my patient's doing, and if they're pulling back their nails or acting more sensitive with their paw, that's a good time to stop.
Good indicator you're getting closer and closer, because there's more feeling there as you get closer to the blood
as you're
supply.
putting more pressure towards that quick.
And let's say you accidentally go a little too far and you do quick them, you'll see a little bit of blood start to ooze out. How can you slow that blood from flowing out?
Yeah, so you should have your quick stop powder ready. You want to pour that on a little gauze square and use a cotton tipped applicator with a little bit of water. on the end of that, and then go ahead and just kind of gently roll that on the quick itself.
Perfect. And then assuming that you don't have any of those problems, do you do any finishing cuts?
Yeah, on the nail itself, it's common that it'll be kind of sharp, so if you do have an edge that formed on the sides, you can go ahead and take that edge off. That's a good time. You can use it with emery board or Dremel as well to kind of round that edge over.
All right, Randy, so I see you've got a cat nail here for us, so what can you tell us about anatomy here?
Cat nails are generally easy to visualize. The quick itself, that pink part. Not all cat nails are clear, but the most common of them are. As that nail starts to grow, it starts to thin out and kind of point down to that needle tip. So it's a good idea right when it starts to arch down and point. That's a good time to make your cross cut, and you can generally see that quick itself, so you know right before that is a good point to do.
Seems like cats are a little bit easier overall, other than maybe
Yeah.
just trying to figure out how to maintain your fear-free environment for these guys, like more in the handling than
Yeah.
it is in the actual cutting.
Yeah, or they can have an extra digit or two, so a little
Okay.
bit more extended on the
All
nail
right.
trim.
And what kind of problems do we see with these guys?
Most commonly, you'll see them will start to grow into the pad itself. Sometimes they can become very thick as well, just build layers and layers and layers.
Okay.
So you can see that.
Okay, great. So any one of those, we would, report those into the medical record, advise the
Yeah.
veterinarian in case there's some kind of infection being created
Yeah.
from a long impacted nail into the pad or something like that.
Yeah, any ingrown nail, it's always a good idea to inform the veterinarian.
Okay, great. All right, Randy. So before we dive into the nail trimming demonstrations, maybe we can talk a little bit about restraint.
Yeah.
So what is the kind of state of the nation these days in regard to, how we're trying to restrain these animals for nail trims?
Fear-free is always the main goal. We always want to make sure we have a nice fear-free, stress-free environment when we're doing these nail trims. Least amount of restraint possible to be able to trim those nails. That's always going to be the end goal. The end outcome that we want is we want them to have a positive experience with lots of treats, lots of comfort. We're not going to rush or try to overpower them in any way. That's something big that we really want to touch on and make it not a traumatic experience for these guys when they come in.
And I assume not only for the general well-being of the patient, but also if you think about a nail trim, they're going to be coming, if ideally once a month for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
That's an awful lot of visits to the animal hospital. So
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
sculpt that early on if we can.
Yeah, and if you can make it a positive experience from the time they're a puppy, that will follow them all the way through. Same thing if it was a negative experience, it's going to follow them through their adult lives. And sometimes just that one negative experience with it will just ruin it for the rest of their life.
You can tell when a patient is in front of you for a nail trim if they've had some bad experiences
Yeah.
versus those that are relaxed and feeling comfortable.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
am I right to understand that a calm environment without a lot of stimuli happening in the background, other people coming and going,
Yeah.
loud noises,
Yeah.
treats, doing some, you had mentioned to me earlier, doing a dry run, like bringing these patients in for a no service visit, check the weight.
Yeah, no service visit. Just check the weight, give them a treat when they're in the lobby, because not only nail trims, but they associate with vaccines and getting poked and prodded and things like that. So,
Man, especially cats, huh? We violate every rule of cat. We
Yeah.
go in the ears, open the mouth, lift the tail,
yeah.
So a lot of tricks out there for creating a feline environment as well. So that's an ideal situation. Now, is every veterinary patient that comes for a nail trim going to respond to these positive efforts?
No, some dogs, the reason why they're coming to us is just because we are the only ones that can do it. So a lot of times the pet groomers and those guys, even the owners themselves, can't cut the dog's nails because they're at that point. So that's when they generally come to us, is when they can't be done anywhere else.
Will we be able to look at that with you today? Will you show us a version of kind of a fear-free approach, but then also for those patients that are going to require maybe a little bit more management, we'll say, and trying to kind of keep them still, because being still also means being safe for the handler and for the patient. So will you be able to show us kind of both techniques?
Yeah,
And
we'll
then
go through both of them.
what about those, like, there's just a point where, do you escalate ever to things like sedation or?
Yeah, you have to know when to call it. That's the big one, is you got to remember, you got to be the patient advocate as well. because they can't speak for themselves. And if you know that they're getting to a point where they could potentially hurt you or themselves, that's the time to call it. It should never reach that point where there's that potential of happening.
So if you're calling in every member of the veterinary team to lay on top of the dog, time to take a break. Panting probably, watching gum color if they're starting to have a hard time breathing and everyone's pushing on them and we're done, right?
Yeah, and it's time to discuss with the doctor other alternative plans, and same with the owner too. The owner should be involved with it also.
All right.
So they know.
Well, that sounds like good advice. Why don't we go take a look? And you've got some patients for us today to work on?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right.
All right, so this is Timber. Timber needs a nail trim today, so we want to make sure we make it as stress and fear-free on Timber as we can. The main thing, Katya's job is to make sure she's having a good hand on his neck, making sure any kind of jumps, she has that protected. And also, once we get a hold of Timber's paw, she's going to lock that elbow out too. So we're watching Timber's body language. We're making sure he's not pulling back or anything, fear-free. So always we want to have our treats ready as well. So we have control of his paw, we have the treats, and he's in a good spot for this. So now is a good time where we're going to proceed with our toenail trim, and we're just going to take it nice and easy on him. All right, so in some cases, some guys do need a little bit more restraint. What we generally do is we'll put them in a lateral recumbency. We're going to have a forearm gently over the head. We're going to have this leg locked into place, same thing in the back. And then we're also going to be assessing him on his body language and what he's doing the whole time. And then treats always a must. So the guys that need a little bit more strength, more sensitive with their nails, that's how we're going to approach that. And then that's when they're in a good spot as well. That's when we'll go through and trim our nails. All right, so we're going to do our nail trim now. We have our tools ready. We have our Siptech powder just in case. We have our trimmers. We're going to start by trying to part back that fur and visualize the nail itself. We're going to see that Timber has clear nails, so it's nice to visualize that quick. We're going to look for that part where it thins out, also where that knot's just formed. That's where we're going to start and make our initial cut. And we'll see, we could probably take a little bit more. So we'll do a little bit more. And that's where we're going to stop because we can see that quick is going to end right there. All right, so here are some black nails. Obviously you can't see the quick at all, but our same principle, we're going to look at our nails and see this first one's kind of ground down compared to the other ones. So this first one we're probably not going to be able to take a lot off of, so I'll just try to tip these guys. We're looking for our notch isn't really there. It kind of doesn't really thin out that much, so I'm always a little bit more cautious with that. Or I'm just going to take the very tip and see. And then we're going to go a little bit more and see. And so that's kind of where we're going to stop, just because it was already kind of blunted over already. It's already pretty short, not too bad. So we'll do the same thing on the next one. We're going to visualize that nail. That you can see that notch is a bit formed better on this one. Also, it kind of thins out towards the top there. So we're going to go a little bit, stop right at that notch. We're going to look. We can go a little bit more. And see, and we can see we have our little dot form there. So that's where we're going to stop. And we'll go to the next one, do the same thing. We're going to visualize the nail, see where that notch is, where it starts to thin out. That's what we're going to cut. We're going to look, do a little bit more. We don't see our black dot yet. Our black dot is there. Same with our whitish, grayish outer area. That's where we're going to stop. And we'll do our last one. The last one's kind of ground down also. So we don't have a notch. It's already pretty thin. So we'll just take the very tip, and that's it. And you can see that black dot was right off the tip. So, and then the last one, the dew claw. Same thing, we're going to look at that. We'll take it at that, right above that notch where it thins out. Don't have that little black dot yet, so we'll go a little bit more. You can see the start of that. So we're going to stop right there. All right, so in cat nail trims, cat nails are a lot easier to see the quick themselves. Normally you can see it's like the little pink triangle. You can also use your pen light on those clear nails just to make sure that you can see that quick pretty well. So with his, what we'll do is we'll start right where it starts to arch down. At that point, we're going to stop right in front of that quick. And we'll do the same thing. We'll isolate that nail. You can protrude that claw, and then we'll do that also. And then once you see he's doing really well with it, you can move a bit faster. And Katya's doing a great job at making sure Dave is not stressed and he's getting plenty of love in pets. So in cats that need a bit more restraint with their nails, the burrito wraps are always nice that you can use. It's a good tool to use with controlling them, where we're going to wrap him like a burrito. We're going to go with the back as well. And then that gives you good control, where you can control his head and kind of use that, where we can protrude just one arm out at a time. We can control his head, and you can even use another towel over his neck as well, in case he is needing that extra restraint. After you burrito wrap these guys, you can also use a towel and do that as well to isolate his head and have control of that. And the guys that need those extra restraint to do your nail trim. And then I'm relying on Katya to make sure that she is protecting Dave and myself from any injuries doing this.
All right, Randy, so in review then, we want to have all of our appropriate tools kind of chosen beforehand. So we might have large or small scissor style clippers for the dogs, maybe a Resco clipper. For cats and small dogs, we want to have the smaller clipper style, little clipper scissor style. We want to make sure that we have some styptic powder for controlling any bleeding that might have, and use a sterile technique of a Q-tip CTA onto a 4x4 with the styptic, as opposed to putting bloody items inside that general styptic container. A pen light as a tip for illuminating the quick in the nail, and some finishing products like an emery board or a nail grinder, patient permitting. Okay. And then for our nail trimming procedures, we want to try to do everything we can to have a fear-free environment, deploy all those tips and tricks first, and then only if needed, we might do a little bit of lateral restraint, or we might use, like in the case of Dave the cat, some toweling techniques and some burritos, moving away from scruffing, right?
You want to try to read your patient as best as you can. Always look at their body language and go with your gut. Go with your gut feeling. If you're not feeling comfortable, make sure you voice that. And then also, I would approach things as if it was your own pet a lot of the time. That's how I like to do things a lot. If it was my own dog, how would I want it handled?
Yeah, that's excellent advice. And as always, if you're calling in all the other staff, if everybody's sweating and working hard, it's probably a moment to stop, take a break, and regroup on your plan a little bit. And then we looked at nail anatomy, so we could understand kind of where the quick grew in relationship to the end of the nail and the notching, and then how the nail becomes a talon and kind of hooks down. We talked a little bit about in cats how that can circle back into the pad. We also talked a little bit about forgetting dew claws, and because they don't take any pressure against the ground on walking dogs that may wear some of this stuff down. So keep an eye on your dew claws.
Dew claws are very common to get those guys in that have actually broken them off.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what the number one kind of nail problem we see from long abandoned nails would be: catching on things, scratching, and breaking.
And breaking nails.
Well, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time for all of us, Randy. I know a lot of folks are going to benefit from being able to see this technique. If you have any tips for us, things that you think we should include, let us know. If you've got any suggestions about future videos, let us know. Don't forget, if you play this video for your staff, that the timeline is in the description, so you can jump around a little bit. And certainly send us any emails if you have any advice for us. But otherwise, we really appreciate your time. And Randy, thanks a bunch. And thank your team for us.
Oh, of course.
All right, awesome. Have a good day. Bye, everybody.